Today, I've been wanting to make this video all summer. We're going to talk about how rotary rakes work. What I've got here is my Miller Pro 900 rotary rake. It is a 9-foot clean sweep, 13-foot working sweep. So let's look at this machine. Let's talk about what that means. Rotary rakes are pretty simple machines. It all starts with your PTO that connects to the tractor, and then there's a single action hydraulic cylinder on here. So this goes back to a gearbox, and then it has these arms that are spun obviously by the gearbox, and then there is a cylinder back here that raises and lowers to raise the machine and drop the machine once you get into your row. The interesting thing about rotary rakes are they have a number of arms coming from the gearbox, and these arms have a cam, or they ride on a cam in here. So what happens is you can see how the teeth of the rake are pointed down there, and you can see how right here the teeth are kind of pointed up, and then once it gets to here they are sitting completely horizontal to the ground. As they move around, they start pointing down again, and that's because the gear, or it's not a gear, I'm not sure what you'd call it actually, but just inside that arm there, that's riding on a cam centric. And so as it gets to this part of the cam, it causes the arm to flip up, and that's why your teeth are pointed more horizontally to the ground instead of down. So what happens is it picks up your windrow right here, and as it moves out, the arms move horizontally, and it just creates a nice tossing motion to the hay, and it tosses it against that curtain. That curtain is adjustable, so you move that curtain in or out depending on how wide you want your windrow to be, because this arm, it just throws the hay out there. At the same time, it's very gentle on the hay. So let me rotate this, and we're gonna fire it up and run it in slow motion too. You'll see what I mean. See if you can see that actually move. We'll get this guy right here. You can see how it actually turns up. So earlier I said this has a 9-foot clean sweep. And so what that means is this rake, the diameter of the arms is a 9-foot sweep. So it'll clean 9 feet of hay clean off the field. But I also said it has a 13-foot working width. So what that means is you adjust your curtain out here as far as you want to go, as far as it'll allow, and then it'll throw the hay up against that curtain and make a windrow. And so from that distance to that distance, that's a total of 13 feet. So what that means is you will be throwing some hay on top of some hay that has not been raked up. So what I do to get around that is, when I come back around with the machine, put the curtain so it's setting on the other side of your windrow when you're raking two together, and I'll kind of just push that row over just a little bit so it is kind of picking up some of that hay that was unraked on the ground. It's gonna kind of fluff that up. So what's the benefit of a rotary rake? Why do people use them instead of, say, a bar rake or a wheel rake? Well, one of the benefits of a rotary rake is you get virtually no ash in the hay. Ash is another name for contaminants from the dirt or soil or ground that gets mixed up with the hay, especially with wheel rakes that are driven by the ground. The other benefit of rotary rakes are they make a real fluffy windrow, and this allows wind to get in there and it helps the hay dry out better. This is a contrast to bar rakes, which rope the hay. They flip it over, but it creates a pretty tight windrow that does not dry well. Now, I will rake a field myself on the same day. A neighbor will rake his field with his bar rake. I will bale my field first, and then I will go custom bale his for him. And I do notice that my moisture tends to be a lot lower in my windrows that are rotary raked versus when I go over to his windrows. They will still have a little bit of dew moisture in there, especially on the bottom. However, one thing I like better about rows, and this is just my opinion, windrows that are raked with a bar rake, is because they are roped together, it seems to pull into the baler better, feed into the baler. It doesn't kick out to the side like these big fluffy windrows with the rotary rake do. Now, some guys may not like that. They may say it makes a more consistent bale if they are rotary raked, and I would agree. When I rake windrows that are raked with a side throw or a bar rake, the bales do tend to be pretty inconsistent because the windrows are inconsistent. So anyway, back to this machine. I rake at a ground speed of about 6 miles an hour. That's about what they recommend, and that's also because that's the fastest field speed of my tractor, which is my trusty Ford 4610. That is 63 horsepower and about 52-ish horsepower on the PTO. A rake like this requires very little PTO power. I think 25 horsepower PTO would be more than enough. And it does a very nice job picking everything up off the field. You lower your rake setting by, at least on mine, by adjusting this big nut down there. I don't know if you can see it, but it's a huge nut. You screw that out, and that basically controls the travel of how far the piston is allowed to drop. And then there's these locks in here, which I removed 2 of these, and it puts me right down at raking position. So what is my raking position? Well, I like the tines to go and drop so they're sitting right at the top of my boot. That ensures I'm not scraping the ground excessively. Well, let's fire it up and let's see her in action. So here she's raking, very quiet. I do engage the PTO on this very slowly because there is a clutch at the end of that shaft that will really grind a lot if I hit the PTO too hard. So final thing I don't think I articulated clearly on the curtain width is you can set that curtain width as wide as you want to within the limits of the machine, of course. And setting it wider is going to make a wider, more spread out windrow. Setting it more narrow is going to make a tighter, smaller windrow. Obviously, that is stacked taller. So if you have a lot of wet hay, I might consider stacking it a little more narrow, or putting the windrow out, putting the curtain out not as far, so it makes a taller windrow, which leaves less hay sitting on the ground, more hay exposed to the air, so it gets dried off better. Well, if you're anything like me, nothing satisfies the inner OCD more than a field of freshly raked hay and nice symmetrical straight rows. There's another thing amazing about this video, and that is the smell. If you've ever been here, you know this is the most beautiful and amazing smell, all in one word, if that can even be a thing. Hopefully this was useful to any of you who wanted to know more about rotary rakes, or maybe you were on the fence about buying one. I think that's about all for this, so hopefully you'll stop in and join me for next time.